The sound of laughter echoed across the living room, bouncing off the walls filled with mismatched furniture and the faint scent of coffee and laundry detergent. My roommate, Jake, leaned back on the worn-out couch, smirking as he tossed the last card onto the table. I groaned, slumping in my chair. "I can't believe I lost again," I muttered, rubbing my temples. Jake's eyes glinted with mischief. "Oh, come on. You agreed to the bet," he said, waving a hand toward the pile of cards. "And now, well, the rules are the rules." I stared at him, confused, my stomach sinking. What are you talking about?" "You're not wearing pants for the next week," he said, a sly grin spreading across his face. "Not even once. Dress code is strictly skirts or dresses. Deal?" I blinked, thinking I had misheard. "Wait, what?" That's ridiculous." "Ridiculous, maybe, but fair." "You lost, remember?" he teased, leaning back with an air of victorious arrogance. I ran a hand through my hair, realizing the truth. I had indeed lost the bet. And now, my private life, a life of secret curiosities and hidden desires, was about to collide with the outside world in a way I had never imagined. I'm Ryan, a 22-year-old university student with a relatively normal life, or at least, one that seems normal to everyone else. I live with Jake, my college roommate and perpetual trickster. By day, I'm your average guy, attending lectures, working part-time at a local cafe, and trying to maintain a semblance of social life. By night, though, things change. I've always been fascinated by the world of fashion and self-expression, a fascination that stretches beyond the casual interest most guys have. The thrill of trying on clothes, experimenting with makeup, and exploring femininity has always been my secret escape, a way to feel alive and free. I never expected anyone to know about it. Certainly not Jake. But now, thanks to an impulsive bet, my secret life was no longer just a private indulgence. It was about to become a week-long challenge, a test of identity and courage I hadn't anticipated. The apartment we shared was small but cozy, the kind of place that smelled faintly of coffee and old books. A few potted plants lined the windowsill, trying desperately to brighten the otherwise dull living space. The couch sagged in the middle, evidence of countless hours spent binge-watching shows, laughing, arguing, and debating over everything from politics to the best pizza topping. Jake, as usual, looked impossibly relaxed. He had that confident aura, the kind of person who seemed to glide through life effortlessly. He thrived on teasing, testing boundaries, and occasionally dragging unsuspecting victims into his chaotic little experiments, like me. As I sat there, heart pounding, I realized this was no ordinary challenge. Being forced to live without pants, to embrace the femininity I had only ever dared to explore behind closed doors, meant navigating a world that could see me differently, judging me, maybe even rejecting me. My mind drifted to Emma, my girlfriend. Sweet, loving, and endlessly patient, though she didn't know the half of it. I had kept my crossdressing a secret from her, worried she wouldn't understand, or worse, think less of me. Emma was the reason I tried to maintain some normalcy, the anchor that reminded me life outside my secret world existed. How would she react if she ever found out about Jake's bet? Would she laugh? Be upset? Or worse, be ashamed? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted desperately to protect my relationship, but I was also curious about how far this bet could push me, how it might reveal parts of myself I hadn't yet confronted. The first step, I realized, would be accepting the reality. I had no choice. Jake's rules were clear. No pants, no exceptions. That meant skirts, dresses, maybe even tights. My heart raced as I imagined walking through the apartment in a way I had only dared to in the safety of my bedroom. The thrill mingled with fear, creating a dizzying cocktail of emotions. I went to my bedroom, shutting the door behind me, and opened my wardrobe. Rows of clothes stared back at me, a mixture of casual wear and my carefully selected cross-dressing pieces. My secret stash, skirts, blouses, heels, and a small collection of makeup, was neatly tucked in a drawer I hoped Jake would never find. My fingers trembled as I reached for a simple, knee-length skirt. It was modest, nothing flashy, but it would do. Paired with a soft blouse, it felt like a lifeline, a way to maintain some dignity while embracing the challenge. I slipped into the outfit, feeling the unfamiliar fabric brush against my legs, the waistband snug but oddly comforting. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The reflection was both strange and exhilarating, a version of me that was confident, delicate, and undeniably feminine. My heart pounded as I adjusted the skirt, smoothing the fabric, and realizing that this wasn't just a bet. It was a journey, a confrontation with a part of myself I had long hidden. Jake's laughter echoed from the living room. "Looking good in there, Ryan. Don't take too long. Dinner's almost ready." I swallowed hard, feeling the adrenaline surge. I was about to step out, into the open, wearing something that would reveal more than I had ever let anyone see. Every step I took toward the living room was a test of courage, a delicate dance between fear and excitement. As I emerged, Jake's grin widened.
"Wow.
"That skirt really suits you," he said, trying and failing to keep a straight face. I felt a blush creep up my neck, but also a strange, liberating pride. For the first time, I realized this challenge wasn't just about losing a bet. It was about exploring myself, testing boundaries, and confronting fears I had long buried. Emma's face floated in my mind again, a reminder of the stakes. Would she understand if she knew? Could she accept this side of me? And more pressingly, how would I navigate the next week without succumbing to shame, embarrassment, or the temptation to retreat into secrecy? The apartment felt different now, charged with anticipation. Every sound, the clink of dishes, Jake's footsteps, the distant hum of traffic outside, was amplified, a reminder that the world was watching and that I was stepping into it differently than ever before. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. One step at a time, I reminded myself. Tonight was just the beginning. The bet had set the rules, but I was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, I could rewrite the story of who I was in the process. And with that thought, I walked toward Jake, toward the challenge, toward a week that would change everything. The first morning after the bet felt surreal. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across the floor, highlighting the nerves dancing in my stomach. I was lying on my side, skirt neatly pressed from the night before, my blouse slightly wrinkled from sleep. For a moment, I wondered if it had all been a dream. But then I felt the soft fabric against my skin, the strange comfort of wearing something so delicate and unfamiliar. Jake was already in the kitchen, humming a tune, making breakfast with a casual ease that only made my anxiety spike. I could hear the sizzle of eggs and the soft clink of utensils, and I realized just how public my challenge had become. The apartment wasn't big. One wrong step, one careless glance from Jake, and the secret of my crossdressing would no longer be just mine. I stepped into the kitchen, skirt swaying slightly with each hesitant movement. Jake looked up, his grin widening. "Morning, gorgeous. Ready for day 2 of the challenge?" I gulped, forcing a smile. "Yeah, ready," I muttered, my voice catching slightly. Even saying the words aloud felt strange. Breakfast was a test in itself. Jake chatted animatedly about his plans for the day while I struggled to keep my composure. The skirt, the blouse, the unfamiliar way my legs moved, all of it was a constant reminder that I was no longer just Ryan. I was someone else, someone new, someone undeniably vulnerable and exposed. When he finally left for class, I let out a sigh of relief. Alone, I felt the first real surge of excitement. The thrill wasn't just in wearing the clothes. It was in the secrecy, the private rebellion, the forbidden exploration of identity. I wandered into my room, examining my reflection in the mirror. The skirt clung just right, accentuating my form in a way that made me blush. My fingers brushed over my hair, adjusting it slightly, and I couldn't help but admire the reflection staring back at me. This wasn't a costume. It wasn't just a bet. For the first time, I felt connected to a side of myself I had always kept hidden. Hours passed. I found myself experimenting, mixing different blouses, trying a pair of tights, even testing a low heel I had tucked away for emergencies. Each choice was a small thrill, a delicate balancing act between curiosity and fear. I imagined how Emma would react if she saw me like this. Would she be surprised? Embarrassed? Or intrigued? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Emma was the reason I had hidden this part of myself. Her love and acceptance had always been unconditional, or so I thought. Now, with Jake's challenge forcing me into a constant state of exposure, I couldn't ignore the possibility that my secret might slip out. By mid-afternoon, my experimentations had turned into a full-fledged transformation session. I had put on a new skirt, one slightly shorter than the last, paired with a blouse that felt daringly bold. My hair was styled in loose waves, and I had attempted a light touch of makeup, a subtle eyeliner, a dab of lip gloss. I hardly recognized myself in the mirror, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in months. Then I heard the knock. My heart leapt. Emma? But it wasn't her voice that followed. Ryan? You in here? It was Jake's sister, Lily. She had shown up unexpectedly, her bright eyes scanning the room for her brother. I froze, clutching the edge of my skirt. She had never seen me like this, and the thought of being discovered sent my mind into a frenzy. Hey, I stammered, trying to sound casual, my voice higher than usual. Lily stepped in, her gaze flicking to my reflection before settling on me. Wow, a nice outfit, she said, a mixture of surprise and amusement in her tone. You look different. Different. That single word carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. I laughed nervously, tugging at the hem of my skirt. Thanks. It's for a bet. She raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. A bet? Really? I nodded, trying to act casual. But inside, panic and excitement swirled. Lily's presence added a new layer to the challenge. It wasn't just Jake or Emma anymore. Someone else had witnessed my transformation, someone whose opinion mattered in ways I couldn't ignore. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. I found myself sneaking around, adjusting skirts, making sure nothing revealed my secret beyond what Lily had already seen. Each step, each movement was a calculated risk. The thrill of being caught mingled with the fear of exposure, creating a tension that I couldn't shake. By evening, I had fully embraced the role. The skirt, the blouse, the heels, even the subtle makeup, they weren't just clothes. They were an extension of me, a reflection of a hidden self that was both fragile and daring. I began to understand that this bet wasn't just about losing. It was about exploring, about pushing boundaries, about confronting fears I had long avoided. Dinner was another test. Jake returned home, casual and teasing as always. Looking good, Ryan. Ready to go out later? I swallowed hard. Yes, sure, I said, trying to steady my voice. The thought of venturing into public like this, of exposing this version of myself to the outside world, was terrifying. And yet, there was a thrill, a spark of excitement that made my heart race. As night fell, I sat on the couch, skirt brushing my legs, heels dangling slightly off my feet. I was exhausted, exhilarated, terrified, and alive, all at once. This wasn't just a bet anymore. It was a test of identity, courage, and self-acceptance. And as I drifted asleep, I realized that the week ahead would push me further than I had ever imagined. Every step, every choice, every secret exposure would shape me in ways I couldn't yet predict. The next morning, I woke with a strange mix of anticipation and dread. The previous day's events, Lily's unexpected visit, the thrill of dressing up, the constant tension between fear and excitement, had left me restless. The skirt I had chosen the night before felt both comforting and confining, a symbol of the secret life I was slowly embracing. I tiptoed to the bathroom, careful not to wake Jake, and examined myself in the mirror. The reflection was starting to feel familiar, yet strange all at once. My posture had shifted. My movements were lighter, more deliberate. Even the way my hair framed my face seemed to influence the way I carried myself. The realization hit me like a jolt. I was already becoming someone else, someone more aware of every glance, every movement, every subtle expression. Breakfast was silent this time. Jake was engrossed in his phone, barely glancing at me. But that silence was deceptive. I could feel the weight of his unspoken expectations, the playful curiosity lingering in his eyes whenever I dared to meet his gaze. Every gesture, from pouring orange juice to buttering toast, became a small performance. I noticed how the skirt swayed with each step, how the blouse felt soft against my arms, and how the subtle heel altered my balance, making each motion more calculated. After breakfast, I retreated to my room, determined to explore my transformation more fully. Today's plan: try a new hairstyle, test a slightly more daring makeup look, and perfect my posture. I pulled out the wig I had secretly kept, a long, flowing brunette that framed my face in waves. As I adjusted it over my natural hair, I couldn't help but admire the reflection in the mirror. It wasn't just a disguise. It was a mask that revealed a hidden side of me. The makeup was the hardest part. I applied eyeliner with trembling hands, blending shadows carefully to avoid any smudges. A touch of blush, a hint of lip gloss. It was delicate, precise, and nerve-wracking. Each application transformed not just my face but my confidence, my very sense of self. I felt exposed and empowered simultaneously. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped. "Ryan, you ready for the grocery run?" Jake's voice called out. I froze. Grocery run? Out in public like this? Panic surged through me, but beneath it, a strange excitement stirred. This was the real test, not just dressing up alone in my room, but stepping outside, risking exposure, and confronting the world as someone new. I took a deep breath, adjusted my skirt and blouse, checked my hair one last time, and opened the door. Jake gave me a once-over, his grin approving but teasing. Looking good, ready to turn some heads. The walk to the store was a battlefield of nerves and exhilaration. Each passerby, each glance from strangers, felt like a subtle test. My skirt swayed with every step, the heels forcing me to adjust my gait, and my hands instinctively smoothed the blouse. I could feel my face heating with self-consciousness and thrill at the same time. Jake walked slightly ahead, occasionally glancing back with that playful grin, silently observing my reactions. I could tell he enjoyed seeing me in this vulnerable, yet confident state. The tension between fear of judgment and the excitement of attention made every step electrifying. At the store, we split up to grab items. I wandered the aisles, aware of the way the skirt brushed against my legs, how the blouse felt soft but secure, how my reflection in the shiny surfaces of the shelves made me pause. Each glance at my reflection confirmed what I was beginning to realize. This wasn't just a bet or a game. It was a discovery of a part of me I had kept hidden, a persona that felt liberating and terrifying all at once. Returning home, my mind was racing. I had survived the public exposure without any incidents, yet the experience left me shaken and exhilarated. Back in the apartment, I collapsed on the couch, heels off, skirt rumpled slightly, hair mussed. I laughed nervously, a sound tinged with relief and disbelief. But the thrill was far from over. I knew the real challenges were still ahead: Jake's constant presence, Lily's curiosity, and the eventual confrontation with Emma. Each step forward in this cross-dressing journey was a calculated risk, a delicate balance between exploration and exposure, desire and fear. By evening, I had fully embraced my transformed self. I experimented with another outfit, a shorter skirt paired with a delicate blouse and slightly higher heels. My reflection in the mirror was no longer a stranger. It was a version of me that was daring, vulnerable, and alive. I practiced walking, adjusting my posture, even experimenting with a subtle sway of my hips. Each movement felt like a secret dance, a performance that only I knew the steps to. Then the unexpected happened. A message from Lily popped up on my phone. "Hey, you free tonight? Thought we could grab a coffee. Jake said you're different now." My stomach dropped. Coffee with Lily? Alone? Fully dressed as my new self? Panic, excitement, and curiosity collided. This was no longer just about a bet. It was about testing boundaries, exploring identity, and navigating a world that wasn't prepared for this version of me. The night arrived with an almost electric tension. Lily had insisted on meeting at a small, cozy cafe, one she claimed had the best pastries in town. But I knew better. It wasn't about the pastries. It was about testing me, seeing me as I really was, and pushing the boundaries I had only just begun to explore. I had spent hours preparing, choosing a skirt that hugged my waist, a blouse with delicate lace, and heels that made every step a conscious effort. My hair was styled to perfection, and my makeup was flawless, highlighting features I never dared to accentuate. The mirror reflected a version of me that felt alive, daring, and undeniably feminine. But with every brush stroke, every careful adjustment, a knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. Jake insisted on coming with me, claiming moral support, though I suspected he enjoyed the thrill of watching me step into this new identity. His grin as I slipped on my heels was both reassuring and teasing. "You're going to turn heads," he said, voice low. "Just don't trip." The walk to the cafe was agonizing. Every passerby felt like a potential judge, every glance a silent critique. I held my head high, swaying subtly, each step a battle between self-consciousness and exhilaration. Lily's text, "Can't wait to see you," kept flashing in my mind, a reminder that exposure was imminent. Arriving at the cafe, I spotted Lily immediately. She was seated at a corner table, sipping coffee, eyes scanning the room. The moment she saw me, her grin widened, a mixture of mischief and approval. "Wow," she whispered as I approached. "You really went all out." I smiled nervously, sitting down. The small talk began, but beneath it lay a tension neither of us addressed openly. Every gesture, every glance, every word was loaded with unspoken meaning. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as she subtly complimented my outfit, my hair, my presence. The thrill of being admired and the fear of being judged was intoxicating. Suddenly, a familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. "Ryan." Emma's tone was sharp, carrying both surprise and suspicion. I froze. She had appeared behind Lily, phone in hand, having tracked me down. My heart leapt into my throat. Lily's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Surprise," she whispered, almost gleeful. Emma's gaze swept over me, taking in the skirt, the heels, the carefully applied makeup. Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed, scanning for some explanation. What was going on here? Panic surged. My mind raced. Should I confess? Should I lie? Every instinct screamed that this moment could destroy everything. My secret, my relationships, my sense of self. Jake stepped forward, trying to diffuse the tension with a nervous laugh. "It's, a bet," he stammered. "You know, a costume challenge?" Emma's expression was unreadable, a mixture of shock, confusion, and disbelief. "A bet," she echoed. Her gaze returned to me, sharper now, analyzing every detail. "Ryan, is this true?" The cafe seemed to shrink around me. Every patron now felt like an audience, every whisper a judgment. I swallowed hard, heart pounding, palms sweaty. Lily leaned in, her grin devilish. "Maybe it's time he shows you the full transformation." The moment felt suspended in time. My mind screamed for escape, yet my body remained frozen, heels planted firmly on the floor, skirts swaying slightly. Lily's teasing tone, Emma's incredulous stare, Jake's nervous grin. It was a perfect storm of tension, exposing me completely. Then, disaster struck. One of my heels caught the edge of the chair leg. I stumbled, arms flailing, nearly knocking over a tray of drinks. The cafe erupted into murmurs and startled gasps. I regained my balance, face flushing, but the damage was done. I was exposed, vulnerable, utterly human, and entirely under scrutiny. Emma's eyes softened slightly, though the confusion remained. "Ryan, we need to talk," she said, voice low but firm. Lily's grin remained, but her eyes held a hint of triumph. Jake's shoulders tensed, unsure whether to intervene or watch the drama unfold. And me? I was caught between fear, embarrassment, and a thrilling awareness of how alive this moment made me feel. The cafe seemed to hold its breath, everyone frozen in the sudden tension between us. Emma's gaze didn't waver. It pierced straight through me, dissecting every choice I'd made to present myself as someone she didn't know. I wanted to vanish, to slip back into my old self, to retreat into the comfort of plain clothes and anonymity. But the skirt hugged my waist too perfectly, the heels forced me to hold my posture, and the makeup was so meticulously done that undoing it felt impossible. I was physically trapped in this persona, and emotionally, I was teetering on the edge. Lily, sensing my vulnerability, leaned closer, her breath brushing against my ear.
See?
I told you you'd look amazing. Just let go a little. Her words should have comforted me, but instead they made my anxiety spike. Emma's presence was a constant reminder that my secret could shatter at any second. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears. My palms were slick, my knees threatened to buckle. Emma finally spoke, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Ryan, why are you dressed like this?"
Why didn't you tell me?
The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to dodge. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Lies felt inadequate. Truths felt terrifying. Every explanation seemed insufficient. Lily, ever mischievous, interjected. "Maybe he's just exploring a new side of himself. Isn't that right?" Jake nodded, though nervously. "Yeah, it's not what it looks like." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Not what it looks like. Ryan, this isn't a game." Panic, exhilaration, shame, and thrill collided inside me. I felt every emotion at once, an impossible mixture that made me hyper-aware of every motion, every glance, every breath. The skirt swayed slightly as I shifted, the heels forcing me into deliberate, careful steps. Every second was a battle between who I was and who I was becoming. Then, Lily pulled out a small mirror from her bag, handing it to me with a sly grin. "Look," she whispered. "Really look." I held it up, expecting to see a reflection I would immediately reject. But the face staring back at me was captivating. The eyes that had always been mine now shimmered with a feminine allure I hadn't dared to explore. The lips, the cheeks, the subtle curl of my hair, all combined to make me feel beautiful in a way I had never imagined. Emma leaned closer, peering into the mirror alongside me. "Ryan, is this really you?" she asked, voice trembling with curiosity, confusion, and a strange softness. The answer was yes. It was me. But also, it wasn't me. The reflection captured both my former self and this daring, vulnerable, feminine persona. My chest tightened. My mind spun. The cafe door opened suddenly, a gust of cool evening air sweeping in, and with it, a stranger's gaze landed on me. A woman passing by froze, staring openly at my outfit, my posture, my presence. Whispered comments rose, just audible enough for me to hear. "Wow, look at her." I froze. My heart raced. My face burned. Lily laughed softly, almost triumphantly.
See?
"They can't look away. You're perfect." Jake's hand rested briefly on my back, steadying me. "It's okay, just breathe." Emma, meanwhile, seemed torn between anger, disbelief, and fascination. "Ryan, I don't know what to say," she murmured, her eyes flicking from my reflection to me, unsure whether to reprimand, comfort, or understand. Then, disaster struck again. As I tried to adjust my posture, one heel slipped slightly, sending me teetering dangerously toward the edge of the chair. Lily's hand shot out to steady me, but in the motion, a small hairpin fell from my styled hair and clattered loudly onto the floor. The cafe fell silent for a heartbeat. All eyes were on me. The mirror in my hand reflected not just my face but my vulnerability, my fear, and my transformation. For a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to this single, suspended second. I realized then, there was no going back, not without confrontation, not without exposure, not without facing every internal conflict I had tried to hide. The thrill and the terror were inseparable. The cafe's hum returned slowly, a low murmur of conversations that seemed to highlight the silence surrounding us. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, every beat echoing in my ears. I could still feel the slip of the heel, the clatter of the hairpin, the weight of every gaze that had fallen on me. Lily's smug smile faded into concern as she realized the full gravity of the situation. Emma stared at me, her eyes scanning every inch of my transformed self, her expression a confusing blend of disbelief, curiosity, and something softer I couldn't quite name. "Ryan,
I
I don't even know how to feel," she whispered, her voice trembling. I wanted to speak. I wanted to explain. But the words lodged in my throat, caught between fear of judgment and the intoxicating pull of being fully seen. My reflection in the small mirror I still held mocked me with its duality. Part me, part this new persona I couldn't deny. The cafe door opened again, letting in the cool night air and a familiar voice that made my blood run cold. "Emma, is that?" I froze. The figure that stepped inside was none other than Emma's mother. My mind spun. She had never liked me much, and now here she was, witnessing me in this vulnerable, exposed state. My hands trembled as I gripped the edges of my skirt, unsure whether to retreat or face the storm. Emma's mother's gaze swept over me slowly, deliberately, a faint smirk tugging at her lips. Well, look at you," she said, her tone sharp, amused, and somehow knowing. "I see Lily hasn't wasted any time teaching you a few lessons, has she?" I swallowed hard. My heart raced, not just with fear, but with the undeniable realization that my secret had escalated far beyond my control. Every carefully constructed barrier, the lies, the private transformations, the hidden makeup, was about to crumble. Lily's hand brushed mine, a whisper of encouragement, but it barely steadied me. "Relax, maybe she'll be impressed," Lily murmured, though her smirk betrayed a thrill at my discomfort. Emma's mother stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto my reflection. "You look different." "Intriguing," she said slowly, almost savoring each word. "But I think we need to have a little discussion about who you really are and who you're allowed to be." Panic surged. My mind raced through escape routes, apologies, explanations, but every option felt doomed. I wanted to vanish into the floor, to erase every transformation and return to my old life. Yet every fiber of my body, every curve emphasized by the skirt and heels, told me I couldn't. I was stuck in this persona, physically, emotionally, irreversibly. Emma's mother's gaze flicked toward Lily, then back to me, her expression unreadable. "Ryan, we have a lot to talk about. And I don't think this ends tonight." The words hit like a thunderclap. Not only had my secret been exposed to Emma, but now her mother had claimed a stake in this new reality. I wanted to protest, to run, to beg for understanding, but my lips wouldn't move. My reflection in the mirror stared back at me with a calm, knowing confidence I didn't feel, yet couldn't ignore. Emma stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine, grounding me for just a second. "Ryan, are you okay?" she asked, voice softer now, tinged with concern rather than judgment. I opened my mouth, but again, no words came. I could only shake my head, trapped between fear, shame, and the exhilarating revelation that this side of me, the feminine, transformed side, was undeniably part of who I had become. Lily leaned close, whispering with a mischievous glint in her eyes, "Looks like the game's just getting started." And at that moment, the cafe seemed to shrink around us. Every gaze, every whispered comment, every subtle smirk felt magnified. I was no longer just Ryan, the ordinary roommate, boyfriend, or friend. I was something more, something uncharted, something that, for better or worse, I couldn't escape. Emma's mother took a step closer, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder, her eyes piercing into mine. "Don't worry, we'll have fun exploring this," she said, her voice low, promising both challenge and intrigue. I swallowed, my throat dry, every instinct screaming for caution, yet every nerve alight with the undeniable thrill of transformation. The mirror in my hand reflected a final, haunting image, my former self, my new self, and the impossible crossroads between them. And then, before I could react, the cafe door swung open once more. A figure appeared, silhouetted against the night, and my breath caught in my throat. Recognition hit me like a lightning bolt, someone I never expected, someone whose presence could change everything. The screen would fade to black here, leaving viewers in complete suspense. Who is at the door? Will Emma accept this side of me? What does her mother have planned? Am I truly trapped in this new life? The answers will have to wait. End of episode.